So I have to recognize if somebody wants my sacrifice, all of me, then they're going to take care of it better than I would. And so what does that mean then? It's from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. It's my mind, my subconscious, my thoughts, my dreams, my desires, my hopes, my fears, my lusts, my weaknesses, all of that stuff. If I can just, I have this visual image of just saying, it's not mine, right? And then I kind of pray similar stuff over my kids. And some days are better than others. But I think for me, what I would bookend this by saying, starting and ending my day with the decision to see good and beauty over the course of the day from start to finish has been a really good discipline for me.
Dude, okay, so I'm going to recap this. First off, you're an incredible dad. Things that I heard you say as the role of the dad, and I want men to hear this, is you said the heart of the father, right? And when we bring up faith and Christianity, it can bring up a lot of things for people. But you said the heart of the father, and just right off your tongue, you said grace, mercy, and love. Okay, so the things that I want to reveal to my kids is they were created out of grace, mercy, and love, and for grace, mercy, and love, right? And I think sometimes as men, we could hear that and be like, oh, that feels feminine. But really, it's both feminine and masculine, but it is hard. Like, you got to be a strong freaking man to extend grace, mercy, and love. And then on the flip side of that, there's no weakness in here. You said also dream, ambition, and conquer. Like, the two go hand in hand. I got to be both of these sides, right? Like, I'm still going to dream, have ambition, and conquer. And then leaning into kind of the ending of what's the role of the father is to recognize their gifts in those 6 things that you brought up. Like, let me see their gifts. But dude, dads, this is tough because we could be so focused on ourself, on our marriage, on our business, that we're just looking for pats on the back, right? Dude, I was a victim of it, or what's the word? I fell into this where a lot of times I would look to my family to make me feel good about me. Like, oh, I wish my wife would recognize this. I wish my kids would recognize what a great dad I am. So I made some of the things I did about me versus understanding like my role. And you said it greatly, from an imperfect human, right? Like, I'm never going to reach Utopia Ned. So from my imperfectness, I have to choose to vulnerably recognize them and not make it about me.
Yep. Yeah, it's a daily.
Dude, that's what you're explaining.
Yep.
Go on. It's a daily what?
No, it's a daily, sometimes hour by hour surrender, right? You got to surrender self. That's such a balance because I think men are created to have adventure, to conquer. I'm totally ripping off, John Eldridge. Just read a great book, called Killing Lions, where it's a communication between him and his son going through kind of his journey as a young man in this postmodern world. But it's so hard to do that and be ambitious, not feel guilty about it, but also be humble and be self-sacrificing. And I do think there's beauty in that tension, right? And that's where, thinking about my own journey, what are the messages I'm passing along to my kids? I would say, just as a quick, side note, I have always made business decisions putting faith and family first over the profit piece. And that has served me well. I mean, I was working for a law firm down in LA for my first few years of my career. And I knew when that job jumped the shark, when I had to cancel a marriage conference with my wife because I had to work over the weekend. And I remember leaving a very prestigious international law firm, a big deal. And everybody said, "You are crazy. Why are you doing this? You've been given this unbelievable opportunity." And I said, I'm going to put my wife first, and all the other stuff's going to, kind of sort itself out. And it's a discipline, right? So if you say, here's one of my life values, which is I'm going to put faith and family first over work. It's just like any other habit. It's hard to get into a habit. It's hard to start going to the gym. It's hard to start eating better. But each time you do it, it gets a little bit easier. And that's what I want to teach my boys is, sometimes you got to make that hard first leap to put somebody else first, but then it gets easier and easier and easier over time.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I think, dudes, you have to sit down and know what your core values are. Like, what are those values? Faith, family, marriage, what are the things? And sometimes I think it's easiest to place yourself at, say, your daughter's wedding or your son's wedding or your son having his first kid or your 50th wedding anniversary or your deathbed. Like, put yourself in one of these, visualize one of these moments. What comes up for you? Like, what is most important? And then take a look at your calendar the last 7 days and just see, like, is that a reflection? Now, I'm not saying like we can't all quit our jobs and just like be at home all day long. We still got to work, but it's the priority that Alex is talking about here. Alex, going back to the beautiful tension and the surrendering, right? Because it's like, you're not surrendering your ambition. You're not surrendering that you still have dreams and vision and goals. But I think it's it's about me. So do you have any practical tool? Like, what does it look like to surrender to the selfishness and be present for your family? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts that come up around that?
Well, it's like a lot of things where oftentimes we will have ideals and then there's the reality because we're human. And so like I have the ideal that I'm not going to eat carbs while I watch Netflix at night. And then, I get up and all of a sudden I got a bag of chips in my hand. I'm like, how the heck did that even happen? Right. But that's life, and so, but surrender, for me, it goes back to prayer. For me, I start every day. I say a few verses kind of in my head as I'm waking up. And I love waking up, by the way. It's one of my favorite parts of the day is like that 5 to 12 minutes where you're just kind of slowly getting out of bed. I really love it when I don't get woken up by my alarm because it's still kind of that quiet time in my mind. And one of the first things I'll say is, today is the day you have made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. It's from the book of Psalms. And what I love about that is the psalmist who wrote that is actually making a decision, right? He's actually saying, today is the day, Lord, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. So he's making a conscious choice to say, whatever happens today is not in my control. And I'm going to find a way to find beauty and goodness in it. And I end the day right before I go to sleep at night. I say the same, and I go through my head. Today was the day you made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I think through the things, good and bad, and I thank God for them. And then the second prayer I pray every morning when I wake up is I present my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to you as my reasonable service of worship. Sounds a little churchy or whatever, but the thought I have in my mind is if I'm going to give myself to somebody greater than me, most sacrifices are dead. Pick whatever religious system you want. You put an animal's dead, right? The blood's gone. It's got nothing. It's like burns up. Boom.
Yes.
If you're a living sacrifice, then the person who's accepting the sacrifice wants it to stay alive. They don't want it dead. And so I have to recognize if somebody wants my sacrifice, all of me, then they're going to take care of it better than I would. And so what does that mean then? It's from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. It's my mind, my subconscious, my thoughts, my dreams, my desires, my hopes, my fears, my lusts, my weaknesses, all of that stuff. If I have this visual image of just saying, it's not mine, right? And then I kind of pray similar stuff over my kids. And some days are better than others. But I think for me, what I would bookend this by saying, starting and ending my day with the decision to see good and beauty over the course of the day from start to finish has been a really good discipline for me.